When is it? Ah, it's this day. Do you ever wonder what is involved in a comprehensive autism assessment? Well, today I'm going to walk you through the process, all the way from the intake to the final report. Hi there, I'm Dr. James Thatcher. I'm a licensed psychologist at Forest Psychological Clinic based out of Portland, Oregon. And we specialize in providing comprehensive autism evaluations to where we look at not just autism, but we also can look at ADHD and learning difficulties throughout the lifespan. So from 18 months all the way up to folks who are in their 80s. And this video is an educational walkthrough on what it looks like to get a comprehensive evaluation. So let's first go over what you're going to be doing before you even go into the evaluation. What you're going to be doing is what's called an intake, or what we do here at the clinic is essentially a consultation where we're going to walk you through this entire process to where we'll do the intake, testing day, feedback, and any follow-up. So essentially those are kind of the 4 steps to this model. So let's go over what you're going to be doing right after the consultation. So right after I kind of go over everything I'm about to go over here today, we're going to send you some online measures to do. And some other clinics may do this as well, but some of the online measures that we're going to send is, especially if you're a teenager or an adolescent, young adult, we might send something that's called the WAIS-V. That's a behavioral assessment, to where that's going to be looking at social emotional issues like depression and anxiety, social skills. It's also going to be looking at symptoms of autism and ADHD, so inattention and hyperactivity. And we'll ideally send that to the parent, the kid, and to a teacher. So we're getting all 3 data points. Another test that we'll likely send, that we as a clinic do send out, is called the ABAS. That's an adaptive behavior measure. Some other clinics might send out something called the Vineland. It's also going to be looking at adaptive behaviors. So it's going to be looking at social skills, communication abilities, self-direction, self-care. And what that measure does is compare folks at the same age. So let's just say you're a 30-year-old adult. It's comparing you against other 30-year-old adults on all those different areas of functioning, just to see where you fall, any areas of strength, any areas of weakness. And the other benefit of this, of the ABAS and the Vineland, is a lot of different states, Oregon included, look at these adaptive measures in order to give any sort of support. So not just the state, but also at the workplace or at school or in college. They're really going to be looking at the adaptive measure to look at what's the level of support that we need to give. Other things to gather up and get ready prior to your appointment and send to the psychologist is any 504 plans, any IEPs, any prior testing, and sometimes even therapy notes. And another thing to do is to fill out what's called a release of information. You might hear it be called an ROI, or release of information. And with that, your psychologist or clinician will be able to talk to whomever your therapist is, so they can get some more information about what your therapist is seeing. I want to take a moment to talk about the difference between getting a screening and a comprehensive assessment. What this video is mainly about is taking a comprehensive assessment. So we're going to be looking at all aspects. What a screener is what your therapist, clinician, or even there's online measures that will look for overarching signs, some red flags that you may or may not be on the spectrum. And that's just indicating like, hey, you should look into this further. What a comprehensive assessment does is we're taking multiple data points, like I already talked about with the BASC or the ABAS, and I'll get into some other assessments that we'll use the day of the assessment, getting collateral information. So not just your self-report, but other people that know you and their report of you. So a teacher, your therapist, your parent, an older sibling, a partner, different folks like that. So again, we're getting all of those data points and we're coming up with a cohesive answer on what's going on. So moving on to testing day, this is when you actually come in and get the test done. This is when you come in person to your testing appointment. So typically how I like to run things is I kind of go over the day and I just take the first 5, 10, even 15 minutes, however long it needs to be, and just develop rapport. Hey, what'd you do this weekend? What do you like to do for fun? And I'm a giant nerd, so I'll talk about Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, or I also like to go hiking, so we'll talk about the nature. And luckily, Portland is gorgeous, so there's tons of nature and like hiking and things to do. Again, I'm just getting the person relaxed and into it because a lot of the feedback that I get, and especially when people start off the day, is they are nervous. This is a big deal. This is a life-changing evaluation. This may have been something that you've known about for quite some time or suspected, like, hey, I might be on the spectrum, but then to come in to a doctor and have those confirmed, or the fear, some folks' fear is, no, you're wrong. That's a lot. And I run into people who have lost sleep. They've been worried about it all week or all month or ever since that we had that initial consultation. So I just want to take a couple of minutes, take a deep breath, get folks relaxed, and then we start the testing. And typically, I start off with the ADOS. That's the gold standard in being able to test for symptoms of autism. And it just feels like having a conversation. So where basically it's structured tasks, structured questions that pull for symptoms of autism. So I'd be able to see it that day. And another thing that I'll be doing, and I put this in the report and I talk about it with the patient, especially during feedback, and whomever your clinician is, they should be doing this as well, is what's called naturalistic observations. So whether you realize it or not, and if they're really good, you're not going to realize it. They're going to be watching your social skills throughout the day. How do you interact with the other staff at the clinic? How do you interact with them? Different aspects like that. I mean, I hate to sound creepy, but you're being watched. Like that's kind of that is the point of going in and getting an evaluation, right? Is that you're going to a professional that's done this a lot and they're going to pick up on things. And they should be picking up on things throughout the day, not just on the ADOS. Another testing measure that we typically do is a cognitive profile. So we're going to use a cognitive test. And I like to use some of the best, most evidence-based cognitive tests that are out there. And those would be the WISC, Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. And we're on edition 5. That has a lot of evidence behind it. Also, the WAIS, Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale for Adults. Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. There we go. Yeah, I said it right that time. Again, we're on the 5th edition that came out in October of 2024. So fairly recent, really up-to-date research. Another really good one is the Stanford-Binet. All of those tests are going to be looking at your verbal abilities, your nonverbal abilities, fluid reasoning. Certain ones look at quantitative reasoning. So they all look at all kinds of different aspects. And another reason why I like to use a cognitive test is I'm looking at everything that day. And cognitive tests are really good at picking up on executive functioning issues. And those would tend to pop up with folks with ADHD. So I want to look at your working memory. I want to look at your processing speed. I want to look at your ability to block out extraneous stimuli and be able to refocus. Those are all going to be really good aspects in looking at executive functioning. Another one that I'll use, especially for younger kids, in fact, mostly younger kids, is I might do a little bit of language testing as well. I can screen for that, looking at their expressive language, receptive language. I tend to use a screener like the Mullen, but at least it gives the parents a really good idea on where the child's language abilities are. And then I can refer out to a speech pathologist to do a much more in-depth analysis of their language abilities. Another aspect of testing that will happen on that day is getting collateral input. So for kids and teens, getting their parents involved, going over history. For adults, that looks at, I like to use a different tiered system to where it would be ideal if I got someone that knew the adult when they were younger, like a parent or an older sibling or a childhood friend that they're still connected with. But they've got to be comfortable with it. Number one, if you're uncomfortable having this person participate, then let's not do it. And number two is, are they going to be an accurate reporter? Are they going to be able to remember those things? Or even if they do remember those things, is it through rose-colored glasses to where like, no, everything was just fine? If that's the case, giant waste of time. I'd rather not talk with them. What I would rather have is someone who is accurate. So if someone that knew you when you were younger is not available, and the reason I like to go with someone that knew you when you were younger, autism is a neurological diagnosis. So what that means is it wouldn't just be popping up in adulthood. It would have been happening since the adult was a child, right? So it would have been going on back then. But if that's not possible, if having a parent or a friend or an older sibling is not possible for the reasons that I just mentioned, then having a partner or a really good friend participate in the evaluation. And how we run it is I like to do the evaluations all in one day. And sometimes it can get very difficult to have a partner or a parent or whomever come in. Totally fine. What we do instead is I have the patient tell me when that person is available, and we give them a call and put them on speakerphone. Uh, and I'm able to move my testing around to accommodate them in their schedule. As long as they can carve out around an hour of the day, 45 minutes to an hour, to kind of go through what's called the ADI, Autism Diagnostic Interview, and part of the clinical history, depending if they're a child or an adult. That's what I'm looking for. So that person doesn't necessarily need to come in. You can if you want, but it's going to be a really boring day for you because the vast majority of the day is between me and the patient, right? I just need you for about an hour to go over some different things, to go over their history and to see what you've been seeing over the years, because that's going to help corroborate what the patient has been experiencing and seeing. And it's just going to give me more information. So it's not just the patient that's saying it, it's somebody else that's saying it too. And it's just lining up. So I'm building a case throughout the day. So that kind of brings me to my next one: scoring, diagnoses, formulation. I'm doing that throughout the day. I am building up and getting evidence one way or the other throughout the day. So I'm not just looking at the ADOS. I'm not just looking at the measures that I sent home with you. I'm not just looking at even the clinical interview or the cognitive test. I'm looking at everything. What is your partner saying? What are you saying? What's the score saying? And adding all those things together. And I'm doing that throughout the day. So by the time that we're done with that day, I can give you an answer. And the other thing that I like to do with a comprehensive evaluation, I know I've mainly just talked about autism and ADHD so far, is I also like to give another test called an MMPI, especially for adults or for older teens. And that's going to be looking at depression, anxiety, trauma, personality issues. That way, at the end of the day, I can give a full picture. I can say, yes, you are on the spectrum, and there's these other things going on as well, because I want to give a full picture. Or I want to be able to say, no, it's not autism. Here's what explains all of these symptoms instead, and be able to back that up with the history, with the testing. And now let's move on to feedback and getting that report. So typically, again, I like to give feedback the same day. You've probably been waiting for this for months, if not years. And when you come in, I want to make sure that you get answers as soon as possible because you have been waiting for such a long time. And luckily, I've been doing this for a long time, 10 years now, thereabouts. And I've done over 2,000 evaluations. So I can do this. And the other clinicians that work here as well have been doing this for a very long time and have done quite a number of evaluations as well. And we want to give you the results as soon as possible. And when I give feedback, I use plain language. I give examples. I base it off of the scores and the testing that we've done. I'll even quote you back different things that you've said that day. Again, I'm building a case. So in my mind throughout the day, I'm building a case. And then when I present that feedback, I'm presenting that case to you. And then finally, you get the report. Typically, I don't mail it unless you ask for me to mail it. I will mail it to you. Typically, we do an encrypted email service. But in that report and on the day of the evaluation, especially during feedback, I'm going to be going over recommendations. So I'll talk about all kinds of different things. What sort of therapies are out there, different resources to look into, who to share this with, sharing it with the school, sharing it with your primary care doctor, sharing it with the psychiatrist, getting reevaluated for medications, different groups that are out there, different resources that are available to you. I want to go over all of that. And in the report itself, usually it takes me within a week to write up the report. Other clinicians here, we get it done within 2 weeks, but it's all there in black and white. We explain the report and we explain your diagnoses. And I make myself available for follow-up. If you have a question about the report, if you have a question about how to get in touch with these resources, I want to help you. I want to answer your questions. So if something pops up down the road, days, weeks, months, years later, I'm here. I want to be able to help you. And no matter who you use as a clinic, different things to ask about is testing blocks. Some of the clinics split their testing up into 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 days. We typically do it in 1 day. Another thing to ask about is the turnaround time of these reports. Different clinicians have different experience levels and write faster or what have you. So asking about that, when can you expect that written report? Because some families need it pretty darn quick. All right, so now that you know kind of the workflow of these things, go ahead and stick around for my other video on how to prepare for an evaluation. I hope to see you there. Bye.